Hey guys, thanks for checking out Quick Sessions Podcast. I'm your host, Garrett Terrio, and today we're going to talk about some breaking news. We're talking about the Russian ban that the World Anti-Doping Agency just passed down, and it's 4 years from international competition. Now, this sounds like it's been going on forever, because the first rumblings of it started at the Sochi Olympics in 2014, when the allegations of a state-run doping program came to light. Action wasn't taken right away, but further down the line, eventually it was. You may have read about it. Something like 15 medalists got stripped of their awards, and it was a big deal because Russia had the most medals at Olympics. That Winter Olympics, they beat America by a handful of medals, but we're their biggest adversary, so that was the whole deal. Olympics in Russia, we got to win, yada yada. So I'm going to break it down today, kind of the timeline, kind of how this came to light, how Russia's handling it, and of course, I'd like to believe that Russians are the corrupt ones and lying and covering up, but truth is, who knows? All these circumstances, though, don't paint Russia in the best light. Shocking, I know. So, basically, here's what happened. There's this guy, he's the director of, the Russian fitness lab. I don't know exactly what you would call it. But anyway, he handled the testing of all the Olympic athletes. His name is Grigory Rodchenkov. I'm probably butchering it, but you get the idea. And he ran the laboratory handling all the samples. And what he did, because he's working for Mother Russia, right, is he created this 3-drug cocktail of banned substances that would really help these athletes excel. Now, I think most people gloss over this, but I'm kind of curious what were the 3 drugs? Metenolone, trenbolone, oxandrolone. Now, the street names might sound a little more familiar. Primobolan, Trenibol, Anavar. You've definitely heard of the last two. They're some of the most common steroids out there, but they all essentially do the same thing. They are mass-building, strength-building cocktails of testosterone, different types of anabolic and androgenic steroids. So, the most popular one that I'm familiar with is Anavar in the early 2000s, or around 2010. It was kind of the fashionable drug for mass, mixed with other things, of course, but it really was the designer steroid that people really went after. I remember it was a big deal just when I worked in supplements. We sold a pro hormone that was supposed to mimic Anavar, and it flew off the shelf. Didn't matter what the price tag was. I want to say we started selling for like $120 a pop, and it cost nowhere near that to buy it. But it was such in high demand, it worked so well that we couldn't keep it on the shelf. So that combined with the Trenibol, Tren people have heard of, and then normally when people say Tren, they think of Trenbolone. This is the same kind of deal, same compound. Because one thing you may not understand, these steroids are just these massive mix of compounds. So, changing one little molecule, I don't say little, but changing one couple letters in the spelling of the whole thing can change the steroid a bunch. So it's a little different than Trenbolone, but I'm getting too far on that path of nerd steroid talk. Anyway, what he did with this cocktail is he mixed it with liquor and provided to the athletes, and they essentially were getting their dope, right? So the big question is, well, how, if they're getting juiced up, how are they not failing these drug tests? Well, this is the part where it becomes like a movie. It's funny to think about because these are all, is not, the little rascals trying to pull off some scheme. These are grown men, some of the smartest guys in Russia, and they're resorting to this backdoor plan. So what they did, and there's another guy involved in here that sounds like more of the second half of the brain behind this whole thing, behind Dr. Rodchenkov, and his name, which I know is going to be real bad, Evgeny Kudryaevtsev. We'll go with that. Anyway, he was kind of the other mastermind of it, but what they did, and mastermind's a loose term for this part of the scheme, is they basically got a room right next to the laboratory where the Olympic samples were, and they burrowed out like a little hole and would grab the drugs and pass them through, pop the caps off the sample bottles and fill it with clean urine. They dump the dirty urine, put it back in, and then keep passing it through the wall. One thing I can't figure out is how the first guy got in there to pass it. I hope it's through like an air duct, something funny like that. But essentially someone was paid off on the inside, from what I understand, and they just passed them through, swapped out urines, and passed it back. Pretty simple, not scientific at all, but that's how they did it. Now, to be clear, before these athletes go into the Olympics and get tested, they're tested in their home states and countries and all that. And all that data is kept. So in Russia, they have a laboratory with, I say piles, it's all on a computer, but let's say gigabytes and gigabytes of data on these athletes that are doping. And they know they're doping. They're just seeing the levels that are coming out of these people. Well, when it started coming out, Russia essentially tried to frame Rodchenkov by fabricating messages between his lab staff and him and make it look like they were plotting to extort all the Russian athletes by falsely accusing them of failing drug tests. So that came out, after this doctor won like the Medal of Friendship from Putin. So like this guy was top of the tops, and now the Russians, now that they're starting to get in some hot water, are trying to frame this guy as a scapegoat. And so he resigned, and he's in fear of his safety. He moved to Los Angeles with his documentary maker. So when it came to this other mastermind, we'll call him Dr. Cud, I don't want to say his whole name and ruin it again. Russia deleted all the messages that he sent out about the doping. It was like, I think they had 25 messages total, but like 18 were deleted. I don't know how they figured that out. So they got, rid of all of that. And then, so the messages framing, they're all BS. So they know this guy is credible, right? This Rodchenkov's telling the truth, right? He's not rolling on Russia he's not making something up just to get at Russia. Because they're seeing all these fake messages, these fabricated messages. That's what it was. The messages were fabricated, so that's how they know they were deleted. It's like in your iPhone, you can delete certain messages and then send a screenshot and say, look what you said, but it's not the whole idea. So I think that's kind of what Russia was doing with these guys' text messages. So for a while, Russia wouldn't let the World Anti-Doping Agency into their lab. Then after, say 4 days that the news comes out, they finally get in. And there's something like 15,000 different folders and files that contain all this information was deleted. It was all destroyed. And I guess you're not guilty when you destroy all the evidence, but it doesn't look good, right? So because of all that, and because of the testimony of the former lab head and all that, that's essentially what came with the 4-year ban. Now, here's the catch with the 4-year ban. Russia can still compete in a sense. So the actual athletes who were not technically caught with steroids are still allowed to compete under a neutral flag. I think they had a little bit of that at the last Olympics. I can't remember exactly, but I think something like that has already gone on. Now, other athletes think this is bullshit because all the data is destroyed. You have no clue if these people were clean. You just happen to not catch these people yet, right? Because they didn't win medals yet. But there's no reason to think they weren't doping also. So real clean athletes are saying, no, it should be a blanket ban. Well, the world's saying we can't just punish everybody because someone has to be clean. And that is also up for debate, right? They may have every single athlete in Russia doping. Now, in some of the sports where you have to really make weight and stuff like that, maybe there wasn't as much because these are some heavy doozy steroids. Like that Anavar puts serious weight on you. So does that Trinabol and the Primabol. And they're all pretty heavy gaining steroids. So if you have to keep weight down, I can't imagine taking that much, but what do I know? I've never been a serial steroid taker. So maybe it doesn't matter to these guys. Maybe they handle their bodies differently. Maybe that's what all the lab tests were about, seeing how much they can keep their weight under control while taking it. And yet that determine the doses. So anyway, Russian athletes that have been given the thumbs up get to compete under a neutral flag. And they're not exactly banned. So intercontinental competitions are still allowed. So they can compete in the World Cup. And they can compete in the continental games because they're not a world organization. It's not the WADA. It's just, between two continents. They're not banned from any of that, technically. So truth is, and I want to see when this documentary comes out. I think the guy's name is Brian Fogel, is the documentary maker that's, I guess, living with Rodchenkov. See what comes out, see what he has to say. I've seen clips of it. I don't think the full thing's out already. But essentially, if these Russians never actually got caught, they can still compete in just about everything. It's like I say, kind of a BS ban, but there's no Russian anthem, no Russian flag. I think no Russian officials can be either on the grounds or in the country, something like that. So they're keeping, upper Russia away, which is a good start. Because as long as the resources are far away, that kind of helps. Because you can continue to test on your own. The WADA can do their own testing still, and there's no Russian officials to pull a Tom and Jerry pass vials through the wall scheme, then odds are you'll have more reliable testing. So anyway, that's a breakdown on what's going on with the Russians. It's funny, and I've read a bunch. I just thought I'd break it down in a podcast. Thanks for listening. I hope you are all caught up in all Russian steroid doings. Thanks for checking us out, guys. If you have a moment, hop in the Apple Pod Center, give us a rating, a review, subscribe. And we're on everything now: iHeartRadio, Spotify, Pocket Cast, Google Play. I'm sure I'm forgetting a couple other things. Stitcher. We're on Stitcher now. So anywhere you listen, you can find us. You can visit the website, quicksessionspodcast.com, and we have all the different kinds of access there. Also, we have a new blog entry. I've started blogging like everybody else in the world, but I obviously care about my stuff more than everybody else's. So if you're interested, quicksessionpodcast.com. I'll also post a link on Instagram. If you do not follow us on Instagram, please head over, give us a follow and a thumbs up. Thanks for checking it out, guys. I'll see you next time.